Looks
Okay.
good, right?
Yep. Okay. Looks like
Joanne,
we're
you're
live.
muted.
Uh, Okay. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Land Use and Building Management Committee of the Common Council to order. It is Wednesday, January 3rd, and it is 7:02 p.m. Roll call tonight. We have with us council members Jen McMurr, Nicole Ayers, Heather Dunn, Jim Frayer, and Dewan Wiggins. Greg Burnett is absent tonight. First item on the agenda is a public hearing, a request for the naming of the patio of Oak Hills Park tennis facilities in honor of Mr. Arthur Goldblatt, local attorney, longtime Norwalk resident, and dedicated supporter of tennis in the community with special interest in promoting tennis and education with urban kids. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have anyone who is in the attendees that would like to speak?
Yes, we have one hand. I will bring Diane over. There we go. Okay, there you are, Diane.
Good evening. Can you turn on a video to see me, or you can hear me,
We
everyone?
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you, Diane.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Madam Chair, just first of all, wanted to wish you all a good holiday time. Happy holidays. I never directly met Arthur Goldblatt, but I have several friends who played tennis with him. And I also know that he did quite a bit for urban tennis to help kids with understanding and learning how to play tennis and all that it means for cooperation and team building in South Norwalk. This particular site is right around the corner from where I currently live. It's a wonderful asset that the city has. And I think it's terrific to dedicate this to him. Surprised there aren't more tennis players here tonight. I'm sure you must have received some letters of recommendation, but I've heard really terrific things about the work he did, and so I think I'm really here for speaking during the public participation on the agenda, but I saw his name and I thought he needed to be lifted up because he's done a lot of good things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing?
Yes, hi, Diane. This is Denise Brown. Hi. Hello,
Hi.
everybody. Nice to see everybody again. Yeah, I'm just going to recommend that this go forward for the public hearing and that we call the patio that was built in Art's name, Arthur's Court. And I think that if there's no objection, that hopefully we can just move forward and have the court named for Arthur in his memory.
Thank you, Denise. Anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing on behalf of the naming of the patio? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to public participation. And so I know Ms. Lauricella has already referenced that she would like to speak. So I see that you're back in here. So go ahead, Diane, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella, 21 Little Fox Lane. Tonight you have several very interesting projects on the docket, on the agenda. Wanted to focus on a couple. The first has to do with the movement of the newsstand conversion. I think that's a terrific idea. I read about the reasons why. The only thing I wanted to ask about is what kinds of security efforts will be made to make sure these folks are protected, since they're really the first people that a person would see if they're agitated. In the near future, I would love you to take a look at the security location right now, the security guard stand, which is set back quite a ways, and its functionality. You might want to look at the city of Stamford for security of different departments. They have people sign in, and I'm just concerned that the new new citizen center here, the customer service center. I just want to make sure that everyone there would be secure. Secondly, and my main focus is 98 South Main Street. It sounds like a really exciting new turn with many different, I really commend that we've cobbled together lots of resources of money. However, I want to make sure, especially since we're using federal, state, and local funds for this worthy project, I would ask that this council commits to making sure that it must have solar energy, especially since the roof is being redone yet again. There's a gut renovation, so I'm asking that we also look to green up this project with the potential for heat pumps and induction stoves, not gas stoves, and that we do not just heavily rely on the fossil fuel industry for many of our upgrades in the schools, as well as this project, just throwing in it because the gas lines are close. It doesn't mean we have to use fossil fuels for our public structures. So I ask that this committee require the architect, Silver Petrocelli, who does a great job around the state and nationally, that we have in their contract that there be, because I of course have not had been able to see their contract, but I would love to make sure that they use and make sure they include any kind of renewable energy that will cost the taxpayers less, but also that are greener, since the mayor, when he was reelected, stated he wanted Norwalk to be the greenest city around. And it's about time that we really ramp that up, especially in this time of climate crisis. So thank you for your time. The question is there going to be solar and or other renewables and heat pumps? And lastly, I noted that there's a $700,000 remediation cost estimate. I wanted to know if Alan and the gang have gotten a second opinion, because my understanding it's PCB contamination, and $700,000 for the small amount of this contamination seems really high. So can we get a second?
Marcella, you're going on 4 minutes now. If you could wrap up, please. Thank you.
That's the last thing I wanted. The second question I would like answered is second opinion on the remediation cost. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public participation? Okay, seeing none, I will close public participation and move on to the approval of the minutes of December 6, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Ayers moves the item. Are there any corrections, deletions, additions? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed and abstentions. Okay, Ms. McMurray abstains, and that passes with the rest. Moving on to old business. Review request for the naming of the patio at Oak Hills Park tennis facilities in honor of Mr. Arthur Goldblatt, and refer the following recommendation to the Common Council for action. Approve the naming of the patio at Oak Hills Park tennis facilities in honor of Mr. Arthur Goldblatt, local attorney, longtime Norwalk resident, and dedicated supporter of tennis in the community, with special interest in promoting tennis and education with urban kids. Will someone move that item, please? Okay, Ms. McMurray moves the item. We spoke about this at our last meeting, and thank you to those who spoke during the public hearing. I'm in full support of this. Mr. Goldblatt has contributed to this community extraordinarily with his grassroots tennis and support of tennis. And so, I just wanted to put that out there, that this is just a really great thing that Oak Hills is doing to name this patio for him. Are there any other comments or questions?
Barbara?
Yes.
After this, does this wrap it up for the naming, or is there any more to be followed up with?
Alan, do you want to comment there?
Sure. Everything is all taken care of, except one last thing is that it's scheduled to go Common Council next Tuesday night.
It has
at
to be heard
7:30.
again with the Common Council?
Yeah, that, and the Common Council, the body that make final decision on all recommendation. So the committee is a subcommittee of Common Council, so the authority doesn't sit on this committee, it's really referring to the Common Council for final action.
And then at that point, does it go like in record with the city that it, as long as they approve it, that it will be
Yeah,
made?
in terms of record, it would be part of the action of the Common Council, so it will be recorded as part of the minutes and action of the Common Council. So no agreements required, there's nothing else. So after Tuesday night, subject to the Common Council approval, you can go ahead. I think the last meeting we had, there was a little bit discussion about compliance with recreation parks signage and something like that kind of thing. So you'll probably check with Robert Sower from Director of Parks Department, just in terms of verbiage and whatever about the plaque. I think there was some new approval recently about wording or something like that. So Robert, you can reach out to Robert after Tuesday next week.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate the vote, and I'm glad that everybody is united in this. So.
Thank you so much.
have a
Okay.
good evening.
Okay, so that passed unanimously, and so we will move on to item B.
We
Review.
didn't vote, Chair.
Oh, we did vote. I thought we voted. It's
No, I moved it. We did not vote.
sorry, it's my fever.
It's okay.
Okay, I'll call for a vote. Thanks. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Even though I'm not on the board.
Mr. Wiggins, I just need your vote. There we go. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm very fuzzy-headed tonight. Okay, now we move on. Item B, review request for property owner of 25 Pogany Street for land swap for a portion of Fodor Farm and subject to support of the committee thereafter, scheduled for a public meeting. So will someone move that item, please? Ms. McMurray moves that. This has come to this committee before, and there were some questions that the committee had, and so we tabled it for a later time so that that Mr. Lowe can provide some more background for us and perhaps answer, because we have new members of the committee who need a little bit of background on this. So I'm going to turn this over to Alan now.
Thank you. Joanne, would you be able to get the backup memo for this and share it? Meanwhile, let me just go through a little bit of this. Back a number of years ago, I think back in 1990s, mid-90s, Fodor Farm used to be a privately owned property and was subject to potential development. At that point, the city acquired the property, potential to build a new Brookside School at that point. The property is about 11 plus acres, and we used state funding to help purchase the property for about 9 acres of the overall 11 acres. So there's 2 acres of property that was never technically purchased, but it's never defined as to exactly where it is. The reason why we only purchased, used the state money for $9 million, because the money is open space money. So when we built a school, we couldn't put it in open space. So we consider the footprint of the building to be city property kind of thing for school construction. So that's why we bought 9 acres, used state money bought on 9 acres of the 11 acres. In any event, there's about 2 acres left, but again, it's never defined. And originally, the property has some subdivision lines in it. And at the point, there's 3 houses. All 3 houses were abandoned. In fact, one of the houses, I think the one that in question from Doug Peoples' property right now, the house, the original house, actually it's the raccoons or something living in it. So it is really open and abandoned. The city's strategy at that point is that there was interest in the community to preserve those 3 houses because the architectural style is very consistent with the neighborhood. And one of them is a very old farmhouse that currently is renovated as the recreation park facility. So the city went on RFP, and we got buyer for 1 house on Flex Hill Road. And Doug Peoples, Mr. People bought the house in the back, which is in Pocony Street, with the intent that I think there's very specific requirements in the sale of the property, that the property owner need to renovate the house instead of tear it down and build a new facility. So I believe Doug has lived up to that requirement, and since then, I mean, he's been living. Doug, you've been living there since you purchased the house, right? You're still living there now, right? So I think
Correct.
right, that's always been a little bit of a city's concern, even way back then, because we don't want somebody to buy the property and flip it, and it's not, kind of. We were really interested in trying to get an old resident to buy the property and keep renovating, keep it, and live in it instead of just commercialize the property. So with that, recently, Doug came to me and talked about the property is a small piece of property and it's wooded and there's no really open play area, I guess, open outdoor use area kind of thing. So he's been using the area on the other side of his house, but that's city property. But in order for them to create some open area for him to cut down the trees on his property, which is a cost, and also really want to cut down trees around Photo Farm anyway. So at this point, he's asking the potential swapping of the land.
Alan, can I just interrupt? I'm sorry. If you're not speaking, turn your microphone off. There's a lot of background noise. Not sure where it's coming from. But that'd be great. Thank you. That's much better.
Yeah. So at this point, I think maybe we have Doug to explain what he's looking for. But generally speaking, I forward this to committee for discussion. It's generally speaking, it's consistent with what we want to do in historically wise. That we sold the house and we were trying to maintain this property as for local resident and also continue to live there. And it actually did what we wanted to do. And he's looking for some land swap so that he doesn't cut down trees to create some little bit usable space on outdoor space for himself. So Doug, it's all yours.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So the land swap is going to be generally just equal to what I have now. It's just flipping from one side to the other. The property that I own right now is adjacent to the tree farm that you guys have at Photo Farm. So I'd rather not have to cut down any trees that are adjacent to the tree farm that you guys have there now. It would be a definitely equal swap. It just makes sense to have it. I'm already maintaining the city property as it is. Anything that needs to be mowed or anything like that, I take care of. So if the committee has any questions for me, feel free and I can answer them.
Joanne, would you be able to put up some map that was on the back of the memo?
Yeah, I'm having trouble opening that because it's a PDF. So I'll keep trying. Maybe Dan can help me. I'm gonna keep trying though.
While we're waiting, there was one question that came up. It was actually Mr. Burnett, who is not here tonight. His question was around surveying. I'm sure there was an original survey done, but was there a recent survey? And do you see, this is a question for you, Alan, in terms of surveying, do you see that this is an equal swap? And, when was the most recent survey?
Yeah, there's no recent survey. Ever since we bought the property, that we didn't spend any more money in surveying the property because we never built a school there. So there's no recent survey. But at some point, we will do a survey so that we can make sure that the swap is equal in terms of square footage. And condition, generally speaking, would be very similar, except that his property, the piece that he's giving to us will be wooded, and the piece we give that we trade for swap with him would be, generally speaking, open without any trees on it, so that he can use it as open area.
Thank you.
My property is surveyed.
Oh, your property.
My property is surveyed, and the points of survey are there, and you can see them. I've just recently had it surveyed this summer.
Okay. Ms. Ayers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be equal. And so we have had other residents come before us about land, and I have posed concerns. So I want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence. Alan, is my understanding correct that this is just a swap of property, not an exchange of money.
Right. It's there's no money exchange. It's an equal square footage.
Okay. So because there is no swap of finances or money, I will support it. I have taught ad nauseum in this committee about us selling property to residents and not in the city not getting full value. But if this is no money exchange, then I don't have a problem with this petition.
Are there any other questions? Or Alan, do you just want to show us on the map here?
Yeah. Joanne,
Does-
can you lower the map a little bit? A little more. Right there. It's on it says Paper Road. It's that piece of property which Duck Peoples owns. There's another map too, a little more detail. If you go to the page afterward, the next page. You go down to the next page.
Oh, sorry.
Right there.
There it is.
So basically, that's his house right there. Oops. Right. The house, his lot is the hash mark on top, and his property and the house is it. So we're just swapping equal property from upper to the lower portion. So where it says city, so that city portion, and where there's a Duck Peoples on the upper portion, you want to swap, generally speaking, half of that lot onto the other and with the other side, and so that he can have he will have some open area to use. So it's equal land swap.
All right. Are there any further questions or comments or any concerns that anyone has? I mean, I think my perspective is, Mr. Peoples has been an excellent homeowner and, steward of this land on both sides of him, really, and an equal swap so that we can avoid cutting down trees, seems like a win-win. So what we would do from here is schedule a public hearing for our next meeting, unless anyone has any objections. Take this up. Did you still have a question or your hand's still up?
Sorry, no,
Okay.
no question.
Okay. So, all right, seeing no further questions, then I'm going to go ahead and vote to move this to our next meeting to a public hearing. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Mr. Wiggins? There we go. Okay, so that's unanimous. So, Mr. Peoples, you'll join us again next month.
I'll be waiting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tonight.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, moving on to new business. Item A, review request for a lease extension with Family and Children's Agency at Ben Franklin Center and refer the following to the Common Council for action. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a lease amendment with Family and Children's Agency for the use of portions of the second floor and third floor of Ben Franklin Center for its children's after-school programs and administrative offices for a period of 5 years. Lease payments shall be as follows. September 1, 2024 to August 31, 2025, $3 a square foot. September 1, 2025 to August 31, 2026, $3.25 a square foot. September 1, 2026 to August 31, 2027, $3.50 a square foot. September 1, 2027 to August 31, 2028, $3.75 per square foot. September 1, 2028 to August 31, 2029, $4 a square foot. Yeah, and that is the item. Just I have a motion to move that, please. Ms. McMurray.
Wait, I want to speak on that really fast.
Okay, well, we had to
Um,
move it. We had to move it first before you could.
Oh, okay,
speak.
I'm sorry.
So, and if I may, I just like Mr. Lowe to give us a little background before you have questions. We are okay. So, Mr. Lowe, go ahead.
Very quickly, Ben Franklin Center. This used to be an elementary school, but for a number of years since the early 90s, it's been vacant, and we currently have multiple tenants in the building. Right now we have Crystal Theater, which is children theaters group using the auditorium. We have the Parks Department using the gym, and we have a daycare program. One is Head Start, the other one is Early Childhood Program using the first floor of the building. And the second and third floor is currently used by Family Children Agency as well as a church group on the second floor. The church will only use a large room and a couple of small office kind of thing rooms. I think Children and Family Agencies, I think they've been in the building a little more than 3 years now. I think it might be 5. And the lease was about 3 years ago modified to the current lease, and it's due to expire by end of August 31st. So in anticipation to terminate at the ending of the lease period, it helps them to manage financially the cost of the utilization of the space. So they requested at this point for extension of lease for 5 more years. And right now they're paying $275 a square foot, but recognizing that the city's operating costs, expenses, all that, I'm trying to get up to $4, and so I propose a gradual increase in 5 years to $4 per square foot. That generally speaking, it's our brick balance point at this point. So by 4 years from now, we probably be a little bit short, but generally speaking, we're still reasonably meeting our expectation to be meeting the city's costs kind of thing.
Thanks, Alan. It seems a very reasonable way to make this increase over a period of time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One last thing. Before at $275, really just cover our utilities. With the additional costs, it actually covers some of our other expenses in terms of management services as well as like maintenance, repairs, and stuff like that. So I think that's getting to $4. It's a reasonable request from our part. And also, I have Robert here tonight from Family Children Agency. Maybe you can say a few words.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Alan, and thank you, committee. This space at Ben Franklin has been critical for Family and Children's Agency. Approximately half of our full-time staff are based at Ben Franklin. You already heard in the presentation, one of the floors is for our after-school program for middle school and high school students, about 150 children. And then on the second floor, we do an extensive amount of work with young families in the community, literally hundreds of families receiving parenting and education and support and counseling. It has been a terrific relationship with the city. My hope is that you all agree and that we can continue this. And as Alan said, as a nonprofit, in fact, the biggest nonprofit in the community, to be able to secure this space really is critically important in terms of our budgeting moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Wiggins, you had a question?
Yeah, I want to know. By the way, I love you guys, Robert, but I'm curious to know what's the process. Is it do you guys, Alan, do you have a RFP process? Because historically, once again, it's just these things happen, but is it a competitive process? Like, who else have opportunities? Like, what's the process? And the reason why I asked this, because on a city level, how, like, the city, we find ways to make money, right? To offset certain things in the budget. So if it's an RFP process, would people, other people have opportunities to probably bid, right? To say, all right, you guys willing to pay $4, but an organization, another nonprofit organization is willing to pay $5, right? A square foot. It's just a question. I'm curious to know, like, what's the process in it all, if there is one, or we think it should be one. That was for Alan.
Okay. Yeah, there is what happened is in this scenario when a buildings typically when space becomes available, we are required to go out for RFP to see who's interested. So we typically, whether selling a piece of property or leasing property, even like I think we're even talking a city hall coffee shop that used to be in a lobby. When we have a new when one tenant moves out, we advertise it and do all the go for purchasing department, and we go for a process to look for another potential tenant kind of thing. It's kind of interesting because a lot of times a group may come to us and looking for space, and it so happens something become available. We cannot just give it to them. We have to advertise it and see any other groups interested in terms of acquiring, in terms of leasing the city, and then we'll see what they offer. But since this is a current lease extension, this does not go out to RFP because it's up to the Common Council to decide whether we want to continue a existing relationship kind of thing. So we do not go out to RFP unless the council wants to RFP out this whole the use of space when the lease expires. So yes, there is a process. It's RFP public notice, and we advertise it, and it's a public opening, and the process RFP, because it's not straight bidding. It's not like somebody offered $4. We look at the qualification of the firm, what they serve, what they provide, and how long they want to propose the lease for. And so that's why it's a proposal process, RFP for proposal. So that way the council has the ability to evaluate various factors, from the proposals.
Okay. And obviously I'm asking this because I'm new and I don't really fully understand the process of what's been done in the past.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Oh, by the way, it's going to go to Common Council next Tuesday night. Just want to let you know.
Yes.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Good night. Okay, moving on to item B. We have two parts to this. I believe we need to do these separately, right, Alan?
Yeah. There's two separate actions.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Review request for agreements with YMCA for the proposed Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street, and refer following recommendations to the Common Council. 1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a sub-grant agreement and all other related HUD grant requirements, documents, agreements as may be required with Riverbrook Regional Young Men's Christian Association, Inc., YMCA, for the development of the Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street as necessary for the receipt and expenditure of HUD grant in the amount not to exceed $1,750,000. The city will have full responsibilities and compliance with HUD grant requirements. Will someone move the item, please? Ms. McMurray, thank you. Yes, so this, as we are aware, this building was to have been taken over and renovated by the YMCA originally. And, as we've talked so much in the past with all those hopes dashed, the Y did receive this grant. And so this is a sub-grant that we need to move forward with so that those monies can continue to be used in this building. So Alan, I would like to, just turn it over to you to give some more detail about this, how it will work, what the agreement is with the Y, which of course is in the backup.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make it short because I kind of presented similar kind of items last month. Bottom line is there's multiple funding sources that make up the funding package for this building. From HUD, there's $2 million coming to the YMCA of which the city would be a sub-recipient for $1.75 million. And the $250,000 they're holding on to do, because the proposal here is that the second part of this this request is that there will be like a better word, a tenant in the building. They will provide program services to the city after it's open. So they want to use some of the money to do interior fit up and furniture and equipment associated with those programs. So there's HUD money. The state is providing for DECD, provide $1.2 million. The city has a $1.2 million from the GGP, which is the mall money, leftover money from the mall, as well as ARPA money. I think this is 5.4. I think it's 5.3 million dollars that's coming from the ARPA money, and we have done very initial estimates from pro bono service by architect and construction manager at $10.5 million. But I added additional money for potential remediation, as well as when we build a gym in the back, there'll be disturbance on existing sites, so we need to do some additional site work. So I'm projecting this project to be $12 million. So the city will still need to put an additional $2.5 million that's being requested under Recreation Parks budget for upcoming capital budget cycle. And what's in front of us is that in order for the city to receive the money, the original money from HUD is being granted to the YMCA. In order for the city to receive it, we need to execute an agreement with YMCA, so as a sub-grant recipient, so that we can expend the money and get reimbursed at some point as we go forward with the projects. So I believe that's pretty much it. I think there's maybe a little more conversation we may have when we go to the second part of this request, talk about the future operating needs and all that. But for the capital side, it's somewhat straightforward. The HUD will have a lot of requirements, but I just made it sure that the city will be fully responsible compliant, so that the YMCA, so we'll be in compliance, and the YMCA, by the time we make requests for reimbursement with the Y, they will have all the paperwork necessary to meet all HUD regulations. And tonight we also have Christine here from Mr. Freeman from Y. If members have any questions for the Y.
Okay, so Mr. Wiggins has a question.
Yeah. So when we say YMCA, are we saying the old Norwalk YMCA? Is YMCA, because to my understanding of YMCA, it's a YMCA in Bridgeport, it's a YMCA all over Connecticut. So like when we say YMCA, what is YMCA?
Alan, would you like me to answer
Yeah,
that?
please.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Chair and the Council, for having me here. And Mr. Wiggins, so there are what we call in the Y movement, right, to answer your question. The Riverbrook Regional YMCA serves 3 towns. We serve Reading, Wilton, and Norwalk. So that's our service area, and we are chartered by Y of the USA to serve those 3 towns only. So when the Norwalk Y was going to close, Y of the USA would say to other area Ys in the area, would you like to merge with XY? So in this case, it was Norwalk Y. So they wouldn't lose a charter to serve the Norwalk community. So at that time, the Wilton YMCA said, yes, let's merge. And when we merged together, we became the Riverbrook Regional YMCA, again, serving those 3 communities. Bridgeport Y is part of the Central Connecticut Coast YMCA, and they have about 12 different branches. But you can take the Westport Y, and they only serve Westport. They're chartered to serve Westport. So there's Stamford YMCA is only chartered to serve Stamford. So there's a standalone Ys, and then there's association Ys. So that's how we're set up. Does that answer your question?
I never knew that. I was always curious to when they say YMCA, it's like it doesn't exist in Norwalk. So what does that actually mean, right? So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Christine, could you also explain just some of the services that you do currently provide for Norwalk kids and families?
Sure. Currently, we're providing primarily summer camp programs. We have a free Race for Race for Chase Triathlon Camp that we serve. And we also have Camp Sunrise that serves elementary age students. For older adults, we have a series of chronic disease management programs that we serve to Norwalk, such as diabetes prevention, smoke and cessation, Live Strong for cancer survivors. And then we also do a lot of partners with nonprofits in the area to support food insecurity.
Thank you.
And do you guys have a location for that? Or like, where do you
No,
serve
we
these-
don't. So it's interesting in the Y world, right? Especially in urban areas, we are calling ourselves a Y without walls, right? So a lot of people think of YMCAs as your traditional gym and swim facilities, right? Something that we have up in Wilton. But a lot of Ys now are still providing programming, but they're considered Y without walls. And so that's what Norwalk is currently right now for us. This is why we're somewhat excited about this project and collaborating and partnering with the city. So we have some physical space at the new rec center in South Norwalk to provide programming, especially in and around STEM program, to reduce that achievement gap and also provide more workforce development for lower socioeconomic populations.
So the things you name, the programs that you are doing, because I think Barbara asked, what you guys provide for Norwalk? Do you partner with other organizations and just run programs out of their building, or like how does that look?
Yeah, so for our summer camps, we rent space within Norwalk to provide our summer camp programming. And then for our diabetes prevention programs, we will partner, say, with Kingswood Senior Center, and we would go there and provide a program there. So depending on where the partnership is, we would go to them. But our 2 summer camps, we rent spaces within Norwalk.
Okay. And where are those spaces? Because I'm just unaware.
Yes, I can get you that information. I've been technically CEO since January 1st. When our previous CEO retired, but I will find out certainly for you, Mr. Wiggins.
Thank you, because I just want to know, because I get a lot of families that come and talk to me, and I would love to, send them your way, right? So
absolutely, that would be great.
Thank you, Christine, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I am a member, and yeah, I've known Bob.
Yes, he's great. Sad to see him leave.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Dunn.
I have a question. So the 250,000 fit out, that is going to be owned by the YMCA, or is their furniture going to stay and transfer over if the YMCA ever pulls out of the space?
Yeah, the $250,000 stays with the Y. The city has nothing to do with that money. Unless for some reason, if the Y asks us to take on more responsibility, then we will have a separate discussion about using that money, and how that use will be submitted to this committee for future discussion. But our contract right now, the proposed contract right now, is for again $1.75 million period, and it's really for all construction.
I wasn't asking.
I'm sorry.
It's not about the money necessarily. It's if they build, like a dais or a stage or something, not that they would, but if that was part of it, is that now owned by that center, or is it owned by the YMCA? So if there is a break in the relationship, are they removing it from that site, or does it stay with the site?
Well, let me talk about that. This is Robert. We're still negotiating the operating agreement, so we haven't really gotten down to those kinds of details. But we're still in the midst of we negotiated some terms, but in terms of what would be left, or would it become a part of the city's property? We're still in the beginning stages of the operating agreement. So I don't have that answer for you.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question. Was
Ms. Ayers had her. Ms. Ayers had her
I'm
hand.
sorry,
Go ahead, Ms. Ayers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have to say that I'm quite uneasy with this position, and I need to speak on behalf of the residents of South Norwalk and really the residents of the whole city. We have been, and I fully support Mr. Stowers and know the great work that he has done in the city and is capable of doing. I guess my uneasiness is the fact that we have been down this road before with the YMCA and we've kind of had a stalemate. And then to support even what my colleague Ms. Dunn said, you know, we are still negotiating and trying to figure out what this contract would look like. I am aware and I do recognize that the council needs to approve this grant relationship in order to receive the funds. But due to the relationship that we have had and the rockiness of the relationship, it brings me a lot of discomfort. And I have to be completely honest and transparent with this committee about that. And going forward, I don't want the city to be stuck with a bill that we have already invested a substantial amount of money into this building over the last couple of years, and then we do not get the end result. And this is not anything towards Mr. Stowers. I know he is a man of his word and he works diligently, and I honor him in this space for that. But I'm really very much so uneasy with this partnership due to what we have just recently experienced. So I'm going to have to abstain my vote. And my abstention is really until I can have a better grasp, or Mr. Stowers and his team can do the work to understand what the contract is really going to look like.
Yeah, can I speak on just for a minute?
Please do. Yeah, please do.
This particular thing that Alan is doing is really just to pass the subgrant agreement. The operating agreement is being worked on with the attorneys, and it will be worked on with the Y included, but it's working on mostly by our attorneys. It will have the protections that any lease agreement or concession agreement, assignment agreement. Usually in these kinds of agreements, the property or the leasehold items that are constructed or are built usually revert to the owners of the property. I can tell you that's kind of a general way that it happens. But this is not about the operating agreement tonight. The operating agreement will come before you. Will become for the Rec and Park Committee, and it will come before the Common Council. But this right now, we're not at that stage for the operating agreement.
Mr. Stowers, I clearly know what stage we are at, and I clearly understand the process. I'm saying, and I'm going on record, due to what has been experienced prior to, I am uneasy to go forward. But I'm clear at where we are. I really am clear at where we are. I'm understanding what we are doing. That's why I'm not voting against it. I'm abstaining my vote. But I understand. Thank you, sir.
And I have to let you know that, you know, to get a feel of how the council feels will help us in determining, you know, to going forward. So I appreciate what you've said, and you know, it's taken under advisement as well.
Mr. Wiggins.
To kind of piggyback off of what Nicole's saying, you know, we don't know how those contracts is going to look, and I'm not on the Parks and Rec committee, but I am curious to know, you know, what are some of the thoughts behind, you know, the building and the partnership is like, and Robert, you probably can answer this question. If just in your mind, would they have ownership in, you know, the building, or like, would they, you know, how does that look? You're on mute.
You're muted.
Still muted. Oh, there it is.
Okay. Yeah. We've tentatively agreed when the mayor and Congressman Himes got together, we did work out some tentative terms. So I can tell you what those terms are, but they're just core terms, and that is the Y will have a 5-year agreement. They will have some options to extend the agreement at least one more term, at least one more 5-year term, and they will pay us a kind of a symbolic $1. That's very standard in these kinds of arrangements. And they will have 2,000 square feet of the building that they'll be having. They won't own it. They will be having their programs in 2,000 square feet. They'll have 2 programs that they've designated so far, and that is the STEM program, and that is the esports program. And then they'll be responsible for their pro rata share of some of the utilities and some of the operating expenses in terms of the building. But other than that, that's where we're at right now. We've gotten to some very core terms that, like I said, Congressman Himes, the mayor, the chief of staff, and some of the other people that are in the meeting, that's what they've determined so far. So those are the basic rudimentary elements of the agreement. Now, when we get into, hours of operation, who will have keys, those are all real detailed kind of operational things, and where the leasehold improvements will be turned over. Like I said, in these kind of agreements, usually when the contract's over, the leaseholds improvements go to the owner of the building. That's pretty standard now. But I'm saying the operating agreement has not been written yet, so we're still going through those details.
Ms. McMurray? I'm sorry. Are you finished, Dewan?
Yeah, no, I wasn't finished. This is the last question. I'm sorry. I know I talk a lot, but I'm really trying to get an understanding of all this. But so the second part of the question was, all right, so, they have these standards. Would it be other organizations that have an opportunity to, because what's the square footage of this building?
22,000 square feet.
So they're going to have.
And then also, I'm sorry, 20,000 square existing building. We're adding a gym, which is around 7,500 square feet.
So, but almost 30,000 square feet. Would other organizations have opportunities to kind of do what the YMCA is doing? In the sense of those contracts, and would it be like RFPs for that? It's similar to what I talked about a little bit about the Benjamin Franklin. And I don't know if Rob want to answer that or Alan.
Yeah. This is really meant to be a community recreation center. It's not meant to be a community social service where we lease out different parts of the building. The city is going to run a traditional recreation community center. So all the recreation that the master plan laid out that people wanted in this community, that's what we're here to do. Now there's community, there'll be a community space. There will be a all-purpose rooms to a couple thousand square feet that people can rent, people can hold. They can schedule meetings. They can schedule, celebrations or whatever. They can rent the rooms. Nonprofits will probably get a break in terms of having meetings, morning meetings or retreats and those kind of things. But no, we're not leasing out the building to nonprofits so they can run their businesses. No, we're not doing that.
So that's the kind of like my point. So what's the reason that if you guys are not doing that, what's the reason to have YMCA there? Why can't they kind of just be another program that uses the space? Why does it have to be, you using them to kind of like bring on and lease space for it?
Because this is when you're developing a program and you're building a space, then you have sources of revenues or monies, as Alan has indicated, that we need in order to open the center. So the YMCA is a source of revenue and a source of funding, and along with that funding, They are going to be a provider of some programs that we would have done anyway, because we were planning on doing esports and STEM programs. So they're a provider of that. But the reason why this, I can tell you, the reason why this historically hasn't worked, because the city hasn't run it. We want it to work, and we want it to work the way other cities run their community and recreation centers. And nonprofits, they come and go. And so the city is responsible, has a responsibility for recreation and the health of their citizens in this community. And so the city has determined that they want to run a recreation and community center based upon a master plan that went out to the whole community and to the whole city. And so that's what we're going to do based upon what we got back from our master plan surveys of the whole city.
All set, Mr. Wiggins?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about what Nicole said and just, you know, the partnership in the past, because it was a big thing. I remember talking to the last ED of the Y, and I'm kind of like, I'm wavering on this as well, similar to Nicole. So
I do think it's
everyone else is
important.
talking, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that, you know, the Y's commitment fell through because of funding, because of the COVID crisis. You know, we were disappointed as a community, but you know, it was a financial issue. And so, you know, because of that, the city will take over this as a recreation center. Ms. McMurray.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I'm going to vote in favor for this tonight because I'm so excited about this recreation center. And I've said that in Parks and Rec, I've said that in full council. I am doing this in good faith that we will put together the best operating agreement that we possibly can. And I know Mr. Stowers is going to work very hard on that, as are our attorneys. My main goal for this recreation center is to make it the best programs, the best place it can be for all Norwalk residents. And I think that's the main goal at the end of this. And so if this money gets us to that point or closer to that point, I'm in favor of it. I hope that whatever programming does come out of the Y in partnership meets that goal. But I am hesitant because of the past experiences we've had. And so I just want to go on record with that. I also just have one stupid question. Are esports like gaming? I just didn't know what, okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'm sure my son would be so embarrassed that I just asked that, but I just wanted to clarify. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I don't even know what that is, Jen. I don't have young.
Lots of computers and games for us.
More screen time.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, Mr. Freyer.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Tonight, we are going to vote on A, which is just relating to the $2 million, 175, the 1.750. Is that correct?
This
We're
item,
not
yeah.
we
This
are not
item,
operating
yes.
on, we're not operating on the operating contracts. We don't know what the details are yet. Okay. The other thing that we also
I'm sorry, that's not true. I mean, I put forth both actions for committee for consideration. So it is being asked of the committee to look at that for your approval. As Robert indicated, Mr. Starr advocated before, a lot of the detailed terms, we typically does not have all of those terms. It's not unusual for us to, like, you know, common charges, whether trash removal or extermination, you know, elevator service, those charges are just being considered common charges, but we need the city staff and the Y need to sit down to understand that, okay, we are paying, they should be contributed to what and whatever. So those conversations we usually doesn't get the council to get involved in, because it's really administratively the staff are responded to work those things out. So what we're asking for on part B or 2 is actually requesting for this with the operating agreement And again, we have a little bit summary. I have an updated memo too. We talks about some of this stuff, but those are the principal terms of the operating agreement. But the fine terms are the ones that staff will work it out with Y, so that we doesn't tie everybody down for talking about, miscellaneous stuff.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this first item 1 that we read and moved, we've veered from the discussion of just simply talking about the grant, the sub-grant. So this first item we are voting on is simply the sub-grant. And the next item that we'll move on to talks about the operation.
And just for full disclosure too, is it okay if I speak now, or should I wait?
Yes, go ahead.
For full disclosure, and Alan and Robert are aware of this, is that we have not received approval from HUD to make the city of Norwalk a subrecipient of the grant as of right now, right? They have documentation. We just received another email. They're looking for some more information. So this is just to give the mayor the opportunity to go into a sub-grantee agreement with the Y. But I want to make sure you understand we don't have approval from HUD right now that Norwalk would be the subrecipient, but it looks 99.9% certain, but I just want to put that out there that we have not received that approval.
So it's a process that needs
It's a process. Yes.
I'm sorry. Let me just interrupt one last time. So, okay. Sorry about that, Jim. I think it's important that we do this. The reason being is that when the HUD give us approval, they want us, most likely, they will ask us, like, do you have a sub-grant agreement? So they want to see proof that the city there's a relationship between the city and the Y. So having the Common Council approve it, we can start working on preparing the sub-grant agreement. So when HUD is ready to authorize the city as a sub-grantee, they want to see that there is a Common Council approval of such action, so that everything tied together. So it seems like a little cart before the horse kind of thing, but actually it's not. It's really anticipating that we get approval, so we have all the paper lined up in advance.
Yeah, and that's not an uncommon thing in this committee. We've seen it many times.
I think it's Jim's time.
Okay.
Okay. Can I reclaim my time now?
Go ahead.
So no, I guess on that particular subject, could we adjust the wording to say something along the lines of in anticipation of HUD approving naming Norwalk as the sub recipient of the grant, something along those lines, so that it doesn't read as if it's a foregone conclusion, because I think that's kind of important. It's particularly in light of the fact that all the bumps in the road that we've hit over the last 5 years in trying to get this thing done.
Yeah, and we want to get it done.
And the other thing too, I just wanted to add is that one of the reasons that we have to keep in mind is why the YMCA is involved in this is, and I think somebody else mentioned it, that there were other not-for-profits that may not have been able to carry the weight of supporting the amount of money that we're talking about here. That it's a lot more risky to get a not-for-profit that doesn't have the experience, the financial experience that a YMCA, especially a regional YMCA, has. So for that reason, I think that the YMCA is really an important asset to have involved in this. But my only other comment, again, going back to the authorization of this in A, is it possible that we could put some wording in there that would indicate that this is contingent upon, even though it's 99.9%, a sure thing, that it doesn't happen unless HUD blesses it.
I don't necessarily see any concerns about that. We do not have a lawyer on with us tonight, but what is your recommendation, Jim, in terms of contingent upon HUD's approval?
Yeah.
And all the related HUD grant requirements as may be required as necessary for the receipt, and at the end of the city will have.
We're just saying that in anticipation of HUD's approval, we authorize the mayor, Henry, so on and so on and so on.
Alan?
Yes, I will. I understand exactly what Councilman Fry is talking about, and I will amend the action to reflect that request. So I think what the committee, I'm not sure you have to do it. I think what you may want to just amend the action tonight when you go for approving this action, just amend it.
Yeah, and when we go to the full council on this, then we have, we've got Darren here. Maybe Darren could ask.
Oh, there's Darren. Thanks for joining us, Darren. You were obviously watching.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So yeah, I think that it's going to come before the full council, and the language can be modified in between this session and the council session to reflect what the concerns are. I mean, as a practical reality, a sub-grant agreement wouldn't be executed until there was it would either be executed simultaneously or after the execution of the grant agreement between HUD and the YMCA. So we get to the same place either way, but I do agree that the record, there's something to be said about it being clear.
Okay. Okay, so
that's the first time I gotta say that's the first time anybody's ever said that I was trying to be clear.
Congratulations. Hey, 2024, it's a new you. Dawn, did you have something else?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry, my someone's calling me. I just remembered. I remember back a couple years ago, when they didn't the Y receive money. I think it was $1.2 million for the center a couple years ago. So is that a part of the funds that's going to be used, or was that money given back? No, I'm 100% sure they received money a couple years ago.
The Y never has received money from the city for this project.
No, through the state. It was through the state.
No, we never received funds through the city or state. We were asking for 1.2 million from the state, and then that turned into the HUD grant for 2 million, but we never received those funds.
So I remember.
Sorry. Let me just correct it. What happened is that the YMCA requested money from the state under DECD. The money actually, there was approval by the state to fund this project. But since the Y is not developing this building anymore, I think last month, the city common council, the council actually voted last month to be submit a grant application to DECD so that the money will come to us directly instead of going to Y. So it's they did get approval for $1.2 million, but it's no longer going to the Y. It's going to come to us directly based on the council action that was approved last. So we did apply to DECD already, and the money will come. The 1.2 million is going to come to the city directly.
Oh, so I knew it was a 1.2 million because I remember seeing it on the board. It was 1.2 million. So all right, it came to the city. All right, that's what I was asking.
We approved that last month. Okay.
Last month?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, very recent.
Talking about 2 years.
It wasn't last month. It was very, very recent. Yes.
Oh.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote on this item. And moving forward, the language will include, in anticipation of HUD approval, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling. And so that will be added. Darren, the law department will take care of that language for the common council meeting. So we're voting to move this forward to the common council. So all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And Mr. Wiggins?
I'm going to oppose.
Okay, so you're a no. Okay, so that passes with 4, 1 opposed, and Ms. Ayers is abstaining. Okay, moving on to item 2. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into 5-year operating license agreement with Riverbrook Regional Young Men's Christian Association, Inc., YMCA, to operate recreation programs at the proposed Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street. Terms of the agreement shall be as recommended by the Land Use and Building Management Committee. Please be advised that detailed terms for the operating agreement are continuing to be developed. Additional details and adjustments to the above terms will be available at the January 3rd. Well, sorry, didn't necessarily read that because we do have it. Will someone move the item, please? Ms. McMurray moves that. Okay, we have spent a lot of time on this already. I do want to reiterate that, it is very common in this committee. We've seen it many, many times where we do have, a term, detailed term, or, some terms of an operating agreement without some of those very detailed, very specific details that do need to be ironed out. Are there any further questions or comments on this particular item? We have, talked about it a good bit. Ms. Dunn.
You have some sense of what our liability is for operating, maintenance, and all that kind of stuff that we're just agreeing to, or is that something that I wasn't part of? I don't know.
Alan, why don't you take that? You should have received an email from Alan, I believe it was yesterday, with additional specifics on the agreement.
Are you referring to a financial responsibility in terms of operating expenses for the building in the future?
Yeah, so if we have a 5-year agreement, what the expected, our financial liability is over a 5-year period, given that we don't have the agreement done already, are we just voting to approve whatever that is?
No. What it says is that they're not leasing the space because they bring in capital to the project. They bring through the HUD to us 1.75 million plus the $250,000 they are going to invest in the property. In return, they don't have to pay rent, but they have to pay for common charges, which is utilities and insurance, whatever it may be. We pay a bill, lawn maintenance, snow removal, things like that. So they, generally speaking, will be a net zero expense on the city side for them to being on the property, because they're going to pay for the operating expenses for the proportion share of the overall total square footage of the building. So they're going to pay their share of their utilities and everything else. So it's no cost to us. And because we don't charge them rent, because they brought capital costs of pretty much about $2 million altogether, including the $250,000 they're going to invest into the building on furnitures and other things. So there's, again, I think I don't feel that the city has any kind of financial liability for them to being here.
Why don't you let Darren speak?
But it is our liability if we're paying the maintenance and they're just contributing to it. If they went away, we would still be on the hook for that maintenance and stuff, right? Or no?
Well, it was our original intent to run the building, Parks to run the building. The circumstances came that, as Alan said, they received money that was actually for 98 Main Street, but it came to them because they were recipients of the grant. So
I'm not arguing it. I just want to be really clear about the fact that we don't know what the costs are at the moment. We're just agreeing to let the mayor make those decisions on who pays.
No, we've projected. Okay. No, we have a pro forma. We've done our business. We have a business plan, and we have a pro forma. We know what our costs approximately going to be. And we're trying to get an operating agreement put together. But this is something the city will be responsible for. But Darren could probably speak more to it because he's working with us to put together, him and Taisha are working with us to put together an operating agreement. So he could probably tell us what our liability is.
Well, we're going to have, we have currently an operational burn rate for that building to keep it open. And to the extent you have any tenants in there that are paying either some sort of, fixed, square footage rent, I think AmeriCares is in there. Maybe they pay $2.50. I mean, that effectively is the cost to keep the lights on. It doesn't defray the operational costs by far and away here. So, I mean, this is going to be a recreational center no matter what. So to some extent, and I understand that it's not a full answer, but to some extent, the operational costs are the operational costs. The YMCA, like any other tenant, would come in would assist in defraying that. Here, I think what you're hearing, and I think it's a good thing, is that instead of coming in and paying $2.50 a square foot, which doesn't defray much of the operational costs on a pro rata basis, that what we're focusing in on is the amount that they'll contribute will be consistent with the footprint of their operations there, which would be better than most similar arrangements we have for other facilities in the city of Norwalk that I've.
Does that answer your question?
I guess sort of. I wasn't complaining about that. I just wanted to be really clear that we, the taxpayers, are responsible for it, not the YMCA. So if they just disappeared in the ether, or the relationship didn't work, that we're all okay with the fact that whatever is being agreed on is what we're committing to for the city. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Wiggins.
So the money that the Y is receiving, is it for the building? That's just what I heard, but I could be wrong. But is the money that they receive, is it for the building? Because if it's for the building, then wouldn't you think they have some type of ownership in it? Because if they don't, if as a businessman myself, if I receive money for the business and if it comes from specifically to me or my organization, we don't want ownership. So I'm just trying to figure this out. And the reason why
I think that's what Mr. Stowers was talking about. It reverts to the building.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah,
I'm comfortable with that. I just wanted clarify that.
Yeah. No, for me, I'm the reason why I'm kind of like really where I'm at with this is because it's a sensitive topic for me. Like I grew up in this area. I grew up going to that area. I know families and people around this area. So it's a very sensitive topic to me personally, but I'm thinking about my community and how my community will look and benefit from this, right? So when you have, a large organization like a YMCA that's going to be a part of it, and just seeing, I know you guys said that, you guys just voted on it, but I just looked at my phone, and 2 years ago, it was $1.2 million it says it on the chart that, Bob Duff and some other people, when they brought some money to the city of Norwalk. So I'm really I'm thinking about this and thinking about it, if it would be the best, thing for us. So don't mind me. I'm really sensitive to this topic. This is my community. I can look out my window and see that building right now. So it's important for me and to me.
Yeah. I think one of the things, Dewan, is there is no recreation community center in the whole city. And this one's being built in your community. So that says a lot, because this city really needs about three, for its size, needs at least 3 community centers. So the first one, and it's the old Sono a neon building or whatever, but it's going to have a total new look, and it's going to be like it was built from the ground, because it's going to be completely renovated inside, completely new gym, and it's going to be run by the city. Yes, the Y will be there, and they will be providing their programs. But what I'm saying is, to you, because you're concerned about your community, that's the community we chose to build the first recreation center run by the city in that community. And I think that says a lot right there.
Thank you, Robert. Mr. Freyer.
I wanted to go back and just clarify again that the question before us right now is that licensing agreement is going to show or going to make Riverbrook Regional Young Men's Christian Association responsible for a proportion of the operating expenses that will be reflected in an agreement that will be agreed upon at some future date. If we just put in that word, those few words, that they will be responsible for a proportionate amount of the operating expenses, I think that would make people a little bit more comfortable with it.
So if I could just chime in for a second, Jim, sorry, I would suggest you don't do that, because it's very hard to, we're talking about common expenses here, and you have to define what those common expenses are. Clearly they're going to be utilities. There may be some front office staffing that's a shared use, but when you go to replace, making capital improvements as part of the, not necessarily capital improvements, but basic repairs, that could be part of your operational, and that may or may not be on the YMCA side of the equation. That's kind of the nitty gritty that we still have to work out.
But I mean, that would really be the basis of what it is. I mean, we're saying that we want them to assume some of the operational expenses for running that place. If they left tomorrow, the city would be responsible for those, as though the YMCA was just never there. It's not like they're walking away with any money or anything like that. They're just offsetting some of our operating expenses to run that center. That's all. So why don't we leave it like this, is that I think that it's important that we say that there's going to be a licensing agreement that will define the responsibilities or the not the responsibilities, but the burden that the YMCA is going to assume. Or I'd let you work on the wording on it. You're a good.
Yeah, we're certainly going to calibrate in the agreement what the cost share is for the common charges. That will be very clear in the agreement.
Yeah.
In the
I'm happy
agreement.
with that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we will leave the language as is, knowing that those details will be hammered out for the final agreement. Okay.
Yeah, because I think it says that we will enter into a 5-year operating license agreement. We're not saying that there is a 5-year licensing agreement right now.
Correct.
And that agreement will be forthcoming.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
But it's not forthcoming in front of this committee, is it, or no?
We should probably, it will be forthcoming because we'd have to approve it for the common council.
Yes.
When it would come to this committee first and then go on to the council, we'll give everybody else a shot at it.
I think that's where I was confused, so I'm good. Thank you.
Well, we'll go to the Rec and Parks Committee as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's going to go to Parks and Recs and this committee?
I'm not sure about that. Sometimes in the past, we brought both committees together. So I'm not sure, but it does have to go through the Parks and Rec Committee.
So we might not see it.
Yeah, we may have a joint meeting.
Oh,
We've had
joint
but I will
meetings.
see everything. I will be
Yeah,
in
we'll
every
probably have a
meeting.
joint. We'll probably have.
You're already in everything, Heather. So
Can't sneak anything by her.
all right, so we're good now. Okay. All right. So all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. Abstentions. Okay, Mr. Wiggins abstains. Ms. Ayers? Oh, we lost her. All right, well, that passes 4 with 1 abstention.
Sorry, I abstained.
There you are.
Sorry.
Abstain?
Yes, please.
Okay, 2 abstentions. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item C. Review recommendation to retain Silver Petrocelli and its architects for proposed Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street and refer recommendation to the Common Council for action. 1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Silver Petrocelli and Associates for architectural design services for the proposed Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street for a total not to exceed $662,751. Funds for this agreement are available from ARPA funds, account number noted. Item 2, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on contract for additional services as may be required for a total not to exceed $60,000, account number noted. Who would like to move that, please? Ms. McMurray. Thank you. Okay, so this Silver Petrocelli, this went through the RFQ and RFP process. They were the lowest bidder, significantly the lowest bidder, and has done a great deal of work. It was already mentioned in our community, the state, and around the country. Let me turn it over to Alan to give any more details. And then we
just really quickly, we went through again, like Councilwoman Smith has said, we went through RFP process for the purchasing department. We received 7 qualification statements. From then we met, including Councilwoman Young, Tom Livingston, and Barbara, and
Stowers. Is there, of course, Mr. Stowers.
Robert,
Right.
Robert. And me and the purchasing department. So we reviewed those qualification statement. We shortlisted 3 firms for interview. We interviewed 3 firms. They are all qualified. And then thereafter, we asked them for pricing. And as part of my memo, there's a summary of the values. There's the prices that was provided by the 3 different firms. And again, Silver Petrocelli, it's provided the lowest fees. And they have been a consultant, architecture design consultant for us for a number of years. But for the last, I would say about 10 years, they haven't been we haven't selected them for many of our school projects. But at the same time, from 2000, I would say 2007 to 2010 or 12, they've been very active in Norwalk, but again, for a while, they hasn't been very active in terms of getting a project. So recently, they've been working on the South Norwalk Library. I think that project is about $400,000. So this is based on all the interviews and all the fee structure. They are qualified and they are lowest price. So the committee is recommending the approval of this firm. And part of the first responsibility they have is to meet. To do a community outreach and meeting with the city staff as well as the community folks, and including Robert. We will sit down to figure out the building program and as well as the building design, how the building would look. One of our major goals is to change the facade, the front. The side facade, we probably don't do too much to it because you don't really see it too much. Also, we can manage costs that way. We're looking to build a gym in the back, so that'd be new construction. So in terms of architectural design and quality design, that will be looked at very carefully. Again, we're looking the front and back, and then we probably won't spend that kind of money on the side elevation because the visibility of the sides are not as much in terms of visible from the street. In any event, so the first thing we do is, again, it's a programming, which we'll sit down with Robert and his team, as well as the community folks to, any member of the committee on this committee want to participate in it, you're welcome. Let me know, and then we'll get together and go through the process of working with the architect and give them the in terms of programming idea as well as design idea right in the beginning of this project.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Wiggins?
Alan, so we talked about this briefly. I know you said it went through a RFP process, and you know, it was chosen by a few. It was condensed for to 3 firms. But so a couple questions. One is, you know, what was the inclusiveness? Like, how was, you know, because when I see all the people that's on that on the list, right, and that'll be contractor, I don't see any diversity like at all, right? So what was the process? You know, was the process also added to where, you know, I know you said you don't have to, but was was the other 3 firms or the other 7 firms that applied, was it any minorities that applied, or and that's my first part of the question. That's for you, Alan.
Okay. There is no requirement as part of RP for diversity in terms of specific requirements in the RP process. So our review criteria is qualification and previous experience, as well as and then price, the second piece. So it's not on it's not on the review and rating sheets that we have in terms of evaluating proposals. I think that
Are you even allowed to ask that in an RFP or add that? I just don't know.
Absolutely.
No.
But I don't think the question was answered. I know you said that the you guys didn't ask the question, but I asked was out of the 3 or the 7 firms that applied, were there any that, you know, did any minorities or you know, other groups apply? Because once again, when I see the chart and when I see all the individuals that's going to be taking on this project, I don't see any diversity. So I know you said that that's not a requirement, which is clearly understood, but I would like to know, you know, who was some of the other people. I know you said it's a price point, but I would also like to know, like, who applied, and that's going to kind of lead into my second question.
Alan, maybe I can just kind of add a few things to this. So, and correct me where I'm wrong, but this was a qualification-based solicitation initially. Is that right?
Yes, RFQ, and then we ask for pricing after the interview.
Right. So then the grading for this solicitation would have to solely be based on whatever the qualifications were. So do you remember what the qualifications were for this one?
It's probably about 6 or 7 of them. Primarily, it's a past experience, a project they have done before, the staffing availability, reference, and that way it's very typical. It's very standard for all architectural RPs.
Maybe between those categories, it'd be assigned some percentage, and then you would add up the points, and whoever received the top 3 tallies of points would then move on to a price-based proposal, right? Right. So I think the answer to your question is that wasn't part of the solicitation process. It was based solely on the qualifications that were set out in the initial RFQ.
That's still ain't answer the question. My question was, were there any minority groups out of the 3 or 7 companies that applied? That's my question.
Can I ask a question? I mean, minority owned or minority staffed, or percentage of minority?
Minority owned. Minority owned. Yes. Thank you.
I did not see anyone who applied who commented on that in their proposals.
Alan, do you know if any of the responses were a state qualified MBE?
No, I don't know. That again, that's not on the criteria that we look at. So No, as far as I know, the firms that submitted, none of them has a minority owner. But again, that's not something we look at, so it's not like jumping at me in terms of where go for the RPs and stuff.
Ms. Ayers.
I wasn't finished.
Sorry, your microphone was off. I thought you were done.
Yeah, I just didn't want no background noise. But so once again, I don't know if still don't. I guess you guys don't know the answer to it, but the reason why this is important to me again, because I know there's going to be, this firm is going to come out and it's going to have some community input, but it's important to realize what community that the people that's going to be are building this thing out, right? It's important that they understand the community they're going to come in and the community they're serving. And if it was to my liking, I know I wasn't a part of it, but if it was to my liking, I would definitely have some representation of the community. Typically, the community is going to serve. Obviously, it's going to serve the whole community, but it's in the heart of the most populated Black and Brown community in Norwalk, right? So that's just my thoughts behind it. But so hopefully we could come to some type of agreement to where they're working with minority owned companies and sublease. I don't know how that would look. I'm not in the architecture business, but that's some of my hopes for this project if it does go through.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Dewan. I don't know that anyone really has an answer for you. Let's move on. Ms. Ayers has been waiting.
I am so sorry, Madam Chair. I had a question and it has left my mind, but I think I do apologize. I had a question, I think, about parking, but I just want to say this and to support and to help my colleagues. Dewan, I know what you're asking and I know what you're getting at. What I think where your conversation needs to start, it needs to start in the ordinance committee. Because if we have ordinances and we have policies like other nearby municipalities that governs contracts and different contracts and stuff like that, that is inclusive to minority groups, then Alan is then empowered to make that a part of his schematic. But if Alan is not given that guideline, it is unfair to him to ask him why didn't he look for something that he didn't have the guideline to look for. So just trying to play devil's advocate, not trying to not trying to be out there in the sea by myself. But if that is something that you are very passionate about, and I think that there are other people who are also passionate about diversity and making sure that we are promoting diversity, not just saying the word diversity, the process to getting that is to start with ordinance to see if an ordinance could be written to support that in our different contracts. I think my question was, and I really literally, I waited so long, I forgot my question. I know we were talking about the buildings and not touching the side and doing the front and the back. With the extension of adding the gym, I'm assuming it's going to now take up some of that grass in the back. What is going to happen with that parking lot? Because that is not a very large parking lot. I don't know how many spaces that is, but if you're talking about a state-of-the-art community center, as Mr. Stowers had spoken to previously, wouldn't we have to address parking? That doesn't seem like that's enough parking spaces.
Mr. Stowers, I think you might want to comment on that. That is something that has been talked about.
Yeah, we went to actually met with planning and zoning, and they indicated the requirements for parking. So we have a plan to work with the churches who have plenty of parking space around the area, and try and work out some agreements with those churches. I think there's 3 churches around there, plus there's a school. So there's plenty of parking around there. We just have to work out some agreements with them. And we've had some preliminary talks, and I think it's not going to be difficult to do that. But I also want to say that for families, that's very important to have that. But we nationwide, they don't build a lot of parking lots for community centers, because teens usually don't drive that much anymore, and they have a way of getting there. So for the youth, it's I mean, the requirements are really because they're in the planning and zoning regulations. But as a matter of speaking, teens and the youth, they find a way to get there. But we recognize that there'll be families, because we set aside in the programming a lot of time for families, particularly in the early morning hours on the weekends. And so that'll be important for families to bring their kids there. So yeah, but the main thing is we're working out those requirements with the churches, and planning and zoning. They're aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Stowers. It was just something that popped into my head. I used to work in that building. I know that building very well, and parking was an issue back when I was there. So thank you so very much.
You know, I'm thinking too, and Robert, I'm sure you've already thought about this, is talking to the transit authority, about the bus routes and making sure that there's service to and from that location.
Absolutely, that's really important. Really.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, I guess the thing I don't live down there anymore, but how is Public Works, are they involved in making sure that the walkways and the pathways to get to it are, in good condition and good repair for the students and families that live in the neighborhood?
Yes, I think we'll be looking at that. Vanessa is very interested in making this a success as well. And of course, she's she's over Public Works, so we're working together. She's involved in working with us on this as well. Even though I'm kind of heading it up, Vanessa's a big supporter, and we're looking at all the infrastructure around there as well.
So is there an idea that maybe increasing lighting or sidewalks, stuff like that, she's got that on her radar?
Yeah, we're looking at the whole area. Yeah, we're looking at the whole area.
Yeah, and transportation, mobility, and parking would be also that department would be involved as well. Yeah. Public Works is on top of things, so I have no doubt that will be taken care of. All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, I will call for a vote on items C1 and 2. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed?
I'm voting for it. My hand won't go up.
Okay, thank you. And opposed, Mr. Wiggins, you're opposed? What was your vote?
Yeah, I'm opposed. I don't know why I can't see my hands.
You see them?
We can see. We can see.
Okay. All right, so that passes 5-1. Thank you. Moving on to D, South Norwalk School, update on proposed acquisition of abutting properties along Oxford Street and South Main Street. So that's just an update. I don't think I need to have a motion. Do I? Do I need a motion? Might as well take one. Give me a motion. Mr. Fryer. Okay. So an update on acquisition of property.
I think that Darren is doing the update. I don't see him.
Oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's on the Alan Lowe. That's why. He's like my twin.
Exactly alike.
Like the movie. All right. So we have we came before I believe the council back in early September, where we were granted authority to acquire what is really 6 properties. It's the CSX rail spur line, 16 Meadow Street extension, and properties that go up Oxford Street, which is 38 Oxford Street, 32 and 36 Oxford Street, which is the contractor's yard, and 28 Oxford Street. And at that time, even though we were granted authority to acquire them, we said we would come back once we were able to negotiate a price. So we at that time had appraisals that we had prepared by two appraisers as basically a starting point, but we have an obligation before exercising eminent domain to negotiate in good faith and consider information and data that the owners of these properties provide, and then attempt to arrive at a number in good faith on acquisition price before exercising that power, which was also authorized back in September. So the good news is that on three of the, I said 6 properties, actually 5 properties. 3 of the 5 properties, we actually have a tentative agreement on acquisition price. So I'm coming back to report on what that is. And assuming that the council doesn't want to take it up further, then we would proceed to contract. So I'll start with probably which is the easiest one. This one is 20 Oxford Street. This property is a sorry, I'm just toggling back and forth between several pages. It's a single family house on a very small lot. These are all it's either 0.12 or 0.11. It's very small, and it is owner occupied. The owner is an elderly woman. She's been in the property for what I understand to be several decades. I believe it's a family generational property, so it's been in the family for quite a bit longer. And her 2 adult retired aged children, her sons, reside with her. So obviously for this particular owner, we actually worked with the sons. It was too, as you could imagine, emotional for her to even really engage face to face on this particular property. We were able to, and we worked with, they had hired the Suchi, and we were able to work quite cooperatively to get to a point where I think everyone feels pretty good about where it's settled. So we had 2 appraisals. One was for 312, one was for 330. They had an appraisal at 415. We used Karen and Fazio, that was a 330. We used Peter Vimney, which was 312. Those appraisals were done back in April and June, sometime around there. Their appraisal came back, I think within the past month, maybe. So it's a newer appraisal. We obviously had to give due consideration to their appraisal. Here you have the appraisers are always going to take sales comparison comps on a property like this. So you're looking at other properties, but then you have to take adjustments. This is where this gets very subjective. You have to take adjustments based on lot size. So you may see a comp sale for another property, but it's 0.4 acres instead of 0.12. And so they make adjustments based on the lot size, based on the condition of the property, based on how many rooms there are, based on how many bathrooms there are, full, half bathrooms, so forth and so on. And this is how these appraisers, come to different numbers, and it's not uncommon. So that's why, there's a delta here, and there's always a delta when you look at these things. Ultimately, where we were able to kind of settle out, and I think this is, a good deal for the city, and it's a good deal. It's a good deal for the owner. Was at 372. So that's where we settled out, and that's the reason why. So I'll just take a quick pause there. Does anyone have any questions regarding that property? Okay, perfect. So the next one that we looked at, and the reason why I started with 20 Oxford is because the appraisal we got in 20 Oxford was helpful in evaluating 38 Oxford. So 38 Oxford, we had an appraisal at 510 and one at 450. There was a bigger delta between our appraisals there, our appraisers there. Again, this has to do with what comps they look at and how they make the adjustments like I just described. They did not have an appraisal, and we asked them to obtain one. It's not always possible to, they're working without an attorney right now, but we were still able to work cooperatively and come to an objective basis on acquisition price. So initially, when we first met, I said, look, this is what our appraisals are. Here's our starting point. We always start at the averages 2 appraisals. I said, what do you think? I think they were at 600, 650. It's not unusual. There's usually a pretty big delta between the purchaser and the seller. But ultimately, we looked at two, I would say, primary factors. One is when this property was appraised, it was appraised as a 2-family home, and it turns out that's actually a 3-family rental property, which increases the value. So it's already modified for that. And additionally, we had the benefit of the 20 Oxford Street appraisal that came in at 415. So 415 at a single family versus, looking at a rental income property, 3-family, you can kind of know that it's going to be north of 415 to a decent degree. So where we kind of settled out was not too far from our higher appraisal. Again, our higher appraisal was 510, and we were able to bottom out at 532, 500. So not a very big percentage increase over our higher of the 2 appraisals. Again, I'll pause quickly there if anyone has any questions. Okay. The more difficult property, and this was more difficult by an exponential factor, was 32 and 36 Oxford Street. This is a unique property for 2 reasons. One, it's a contractor's yard, and there's not a lot of contractors' yards that go up for sale in Norwalk. In fact, there's virtually no contractors' yards that go up for sale currently in Norwalk. 2, it's a property that is used by the owner as one property, but it's really 2 separate parcels. And I said there were 2 reasons, actually 3. And the third is that it's a mixed use. There's actually 2 residential buildings, multifamily residential buildings on the property, in addition to a contractor's yard, which is essentially the backyard of the residential properties. One's a 2-family rental property, and there's a 3-family rental property. The overall acreage of the property is 0.43. 0.25 is what we determined to be the amount being used as a contractor's yard, and I'll get back to why I'm talking about in a few minutes. So the balance, which is about 0.18, was the footprint of these 2 residential multifamily units. So you're talking about two separate multifamily on an extremely small footprint. One's probably 0.07, no, 0.08, or 0.08, 0.09, somewhere around there. And it's also on a contractor's yard, so there's no background, there's no backyard. So it's very hard to find, comps for the residential units. Additionally, the complexity of the contractor's yard is that there's just not, these things are coming on the market regularly. Ultimately, we had this property appraised, and this kind of speaks to the complexity of it. there was quite a substantial delta between a high and a low appraisal. So our low appraisal was $1,040,000, and our high appraisal, which I think we really are giving a lot more credit to, was $1,330,000. So I want to focus on that $1,330,000 for a second. So when they had their own appraisal done, in their appraisal, again, we used Karen Afazio and Peter Bimini. When they had their appraisal done, they used Mr. McGuire. These are all very, very reputable, well-known appraisers, and their appraisal came back at $2 million. The biggest reason why was the contractor's yard, and understandably, again, there's really not a lot in the way of comps. What ultimately happened during the negotiation process is a property on Librano went up for sale. It was a 0.34 acre contractor's yard that sold for $1.5 million. And so what we did is we kind of extrapolated that sale price, and we looked at, you know, what the effective acreage of the contractor's yard is or was, and that we determined was roughly about 0.25. You know, that's the way we looked at it. You could maybe calculate a little bit higher. We would look at it 0.25. And if you took the percentage, 0.25 divided by 0.34, and multiplied that times 1.5 million, you arrive at roughly $1,110,000. So about $1.1 million plus or minus is kind of a decent benchmark for what the accurate value of the contractor's yard is. So that's, you know, obviously in excess of where our appraiser was, even on the high end. You know, then the question is, what are the two residential unit, two multifamily properties worth? Again, you know, maybe not a huge market for folks that want to live in an apartment that the backyard's a contractor's yard, but still the way rents are in this area of the country, and particularly Norwalk, you know, there's still a bit of value in those properties. So ultimately, you know, looking at, you know, being able to arrive at a value for the contractor's yard, and looking at, you know, what we're seeing, you know, on the other properties for appraisals on multifamily, and, you know, kind of adding one and one together, we were able to, you know, kind of negotiate between the two numbers, that 1.33 and the 2 million. And we arrived at 1.76 million. So that was quite an extensive negotiation. It went back and forth quite a bit. I do think that, to be really honest, that's we should strongly consider that number, because my understanding is just recently one additional contractor's yard came on the market, not too dissimilar from Librano, for over 1.8 million. Who knows what it will ultimately sell for, but what we're seeing is that the price for contractor's yards is only going up in Norwalk. So that's the sum and substance of where we are in the negotiation process. We're in a position to move forward with contracts at this point, having, you know, tentative arrangements on acquisition price. And again, as we promised when we came before the council back in September, we would provide the update and look for additional instruction.
Thank you, Darren, aka Alan Lowe.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. We appreciate it. And then I'm sure you'll update us as there is further information. Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, just, what was the final price on the last one? Was it 1.78 or something?
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, it was 1,760,000.
Okay.
So
have you had an opportunity to take a look at the tax rolls and find out what they're appraised at? Did anybody do that exercise? Just curious.
So I didn't look at the last reval because it's so far. You know, those are mass revals, and it's so far from. I mean, there was a 2018 reval, I believe.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the reval information at the time, but I can look it up right now. If you give me a second, I can tell you what's on the division.
I'm just curious.
Sorry. If anyone else has any questions, I can pose those while I'm looking this up. Certainly.
You know, I'll go ahead and ask a question. It's something we have talked about in the past, is we are, you know, helping these families find homes, right? A place to live. Yeah.
Yes, we have both I would say, statutory obligation and a moral obligation to do that. And it's something that's being taken quite seriously.
Yeah.
So again, this is it's a little complicated because there's really two parcels that are upper as one, but 32 Oxford Street, the 2023 reval looks like, and assuming that Vision Appraisal, which is the public facing website, is accurate, is 431, 440, 36. Is 532.40, but this is, you know, again, this is it's part of a mass appraisal.
Yeah, but that's the same number that you guys agreed on.
No, that totals about $1 million between the two properties. But again, I would come back to the fact that Lebrano sold at what it sold for.
Okay. I get the idea. It's not that far off the appraisal. Yeah. I mean, the first one is the new reval appraisal is higher than what you agreed. And the other one is probably a little bit lower. Or I'm sorry, the appraisal is higher. No, what you got is higher than what the appraisal is.
They're actually,
it's too complicated.
Yeah, I'd have to look up the other two. Those are probably
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Pretty relative. But I wouldn't put too much credence in I would look at the I was trying to figure out how I'm going to say this. I would look at the Lebrano sale as the objective factor.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
I just want to note to Heather and Dijon. I know you guys are not familiar with what we're talking about in terms of which property they are. So what I'll do is tomorrow or Friday, I will send you something on the previous memo explaining what this is all about, acquisition of this property next to a South Norwalk school and the strategy behind it and stuff. So there are long history behind it. Since you're a new council member, you may not know when we talk about 32 Oxford Street, what it means and stuff like that. So I'll follow up either tomorrow or Friday to give you more information back up so you know what we're talking about and how much money we allocated, how much more money we need in order to make all this other stuff work. And you're welcome to call me too if you want to, just understanding the background history of some of this. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Al.
I'm lost. Thank you.
That's the same for me as well. If anyone wants to check tomorrow, please call me.
Thanks, Darren. Okay, let's move on to E, update on school construction projects. Hey, Dan.
Dan, if you could make it quick, it's getting
Yes,
everybody's.
Share my screen quick and we'll.
Please, thank you.
I don't talk as much as Alan, so it should be easy. Okay, so an overview of the Norwalk School Construction Program. We have 3 schools ongoing at the moment: Cranberry School, South Norwalk School, and the new Norwalk High School. And we'll get into more detail in a moment. Cranberry Elementary School, as you know, was completed for occupancy this past fall, August 2023. After the occupancy, the construction manager proceeded with demolishing the existing building, and that made room for the new parking lot, tennis court, and ball field. The new lots and bus loop have been completed, striped, the curbs are in place, the tennis court has been constructed, and they've spread the topsoil as well as placed the infield clay for the ball field. And this project is scheduled for final completion in 2024 in the seeding season. So we'll need to seed that, establish the turf, and then that would be turned over to the city.
Just 2 minor things very quickly. Is that Dan, for next month's meeting, I think we should adjust the numbers on the bottom. There is some free balance. I think we projected about $1 million left in this project. So I think we want to update those numbers. I think these are original numbers. The second thing is that we are going through some review of some of the expenses as a testing. When we do a construction, we require to do testing, and some of the testing fees came back and they exceeded our budget number. So we need to come back to the land use for increase to our allowance for material testing. When you take the cement and other things, that the number of sample we took was substantially higher than what was projected. So the 2 things that need to be coming back next month. Okay.
And just the projection closeout as well as the completion of the fields going into next year. South Norwalk Elementary School. Last time we met, we had, I forget if it was the day before or I think just before the first meeting with the state. This was for the pre-bid conformance review. We review all of our documents, all of our sign-offs. After that meeting, we met with the state a few more times over the following weeks. And then on December 18th, we did receive our approval from the state to go out to bid. The project went out to public bid on December 21st, just before the holidays. We have bids due in 2 waves. The first bids are due on January 11th for demo and abatement only. And that was an effort to get those as quickly as possible so that we can start the approval process or the notification process with the state, with the city, as required to begin demolition. And then January 18th, the balance of the bid packages are due. In the month towards the end of January, the construction manager will review those bids. They prepare a guaranteed maximum price agreement, and that's the total price for the project. And that would be moved forward in the February land use meeting for approval. And construction scheduled to begin late February, early March of 2024, with the new school being completed for occupancy in August of 2025.
The note on this project is that there may be a possibility that we may require a special meeting on land use in the middle of February, because this construction period we have is very tight. So we may need to, in order to start as early as we can, we may need a special meeting of land use.
Okay.
Yep. And here's our approvals, bid and GMP through February, with March beginning construction, closeout beginning after the school is occupied. Norwalk High School. Last month, the update was that we did receive approval to go out to bid on November 20th, or we received approval on November 4th. We went out to public bid on the 20th. We have several due dates. It is a larger project. We have gotten a lot of pushback from the contractor, so we've done what we can to push out a few bid packages to allow a little more time for review, since that did bid over the holidays. There are bids starting to come in tomorrow on the 4th. There are other bid packages coming in on January 11th. And then January 18th, there's a handful of packages that we'll receive bids for on that date. Same as the South Norwalk Elementary School. Those bids will be reviewed, de-scoped, and then a guaranteed maximum price will be prepared, and that would be put forward in February for approval as well. And just a recap of the project schedule and just an understanding of the phases of the project. There's two major phases. The one is the completion of the main building on the existing Testa Field. That's scheduled to begin in late February, early March. The phase includes the construction of the school for occupancy in August of 2027. After this new school is occupied, that's when the site shifts. In the summer of 2027, that will allow us to demolish the existing school, construct the main parking lot, football track stadium, tennis courts in the field house, and that phase will be completed by November of 2028. And just a note here, it's not clear. The football and track stadium will be completed for the fall season. It's really the tennis courts that get pushed out to the November 2028 of that year. Here's a schedule overview for this project.
And I just want to remind everybody that the state funding is based on $239 million. The city has another additional $6.5 million that we are leveraging against the project for non-eligible items that the state consider that not reimbursable. Certain things they consider not reimbursable, like permit fees. And there's a few things that's not eligible for reimbursement. So we're going to charge those to that account of $6.5 million that we have. Okay, thank you. There's no question. Okay, Jim, sorry.
This question.
Yes, Alan, did you ever meet with Lisa Grant to look into the graveyard situation that she was concerned about being on the existing football field? This is something in the historical commission. Lisa Grant did some research and found Wilson. Sorry. Yes, her husband's name is Grant. So she did some work. And it was doing some investigative work, found out that there was an old arms house where the Narragansett School was, and there might be a burial plot where the football field is now, which would be disturbed if you're going to put the new building there. I don't know if you had an opportunity. I thought you guys were going to go take a look at it.
Yeah, let me explain that conversation. I'm very open-minded about this because it's like a better thing. It's more like History Channel kind of stuff, research and discover and treasure hunting kind of thing. So I'm not against looking at it at all. I'm very open-minded about this, and also that if there's an unidentified graveyard on or near the property, I want to know about before we start. Because that's a problem once we start. So I want to figure where it may be and do the testing, ground penetrating radar testing ahead of time. So based on everything, I talked to Lisa a few times and emailed each other a number of times back and forth. She gave me all the information. It's a very good dialogue. And then I met with her probably about a Monday 2 weeks ago, I think, or Tuesday, about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And we gone through all the items. And she was very interested in starting probing ground radar, penetrating radar testing, but I'm not so quick to do that. The reason being is that I wanted not her personally, but I wanted to identify a general area that we think it is. We can't just go out there and looking for things that doesn't exist. We need to identify that, what are the highest potential area, and that's where we should look. Where the football field is, that wasn't part, based on everything I've seen. I mean, I'm very kind of like detective-minded kind of thing, a junior Sherlock Holmes kind of thing. And the way I look at it, we overlay the current GIS map over the old maps. The area of the football field actually wasn't part of the property was adjacent property and always been wooded. So the chance of the football field being a cemetery, even a small one, is very unlikely. And also with a football field, it's all been excavated, and also the grade changes. If you look at where the beaches are and Narrow Field, that's about, I would say, about 8 feet higher. So in order for us to build a football field, that has to be graded down, excavate 8 feet down or more kind of thing. So again, they're usually wooded, and that was used to be a baseball field. In 2000, I was involved in the building of the football field. So we excavated drainage and stuff all over the field. So it's very, very, I mean, I would say 98, 99% chance that there's nothing there because we excavated everything over there already. So we have a long conversation. We go through all the scenario, and I'm not disagreeing that there are cemetery plots that the city and the Historic Society or Commission doesn't know about. And there's a potential that be near Narrow-Mick property, more like near Narrow-Mick than the whole high school property. But at the same time is that in order for us to look, we need to kind of zoom in a general area, but we weren't able to. So she's continuing to look at this, and I'm going to continue to help her to figure out where the probable area would be. You know, when you look at Norwalk High School, the entire property has been excavated, where the school is, and where the softball field, where the existing softball field used to be a pond there, so it wouldn't be over there. The rest is all parking lot. It's all been graded and excavated. I know, you know, we always talk about graves, it's 6 foot below ground kind of thing, but a lot of times for the potter's field kind of thing, people doesn't dig down as deep, I don't think, you know, and also it's not a full barrel with caskets sometimes. So it's kind of questionable where they would be. So we're taking all those conversation and concept ideas together and try to figure out what's the highest probability in terms of location. And between me and her, we couldn't figure it out. And so she's going to continue to look. But as soon as she can identify area, then I generally agree with. We would get somebody out there to ground penetration radar to figure out whether there's anything there. But it's very unlikely that we'll find it. The reason being, even there on this property, it has been moved. The entire Narrow-Mick School has been constructed, right? Excavated, developed, and Norwalk High School also. So the chance of we finding something. The only place I think there may be a possibility is actually the little softball field at Narrow-Mick School. I don't think you want to tell that to the parents, their kids either. but if any place is possible, that's more seems like the area that may be. But again, I think we need to do more to figure out whether it actually where these plots may be. So there's a lot of work that she done that I also review with her. We have many conversations. It's all very constructive kind of conversation, and the goal is to see if we can find them, because again, it's my interest. If there is an issue, we want to find it early, so not during construction. So I'm 100% supportive to figure it out, but at the same time, it may not be there at all. Okay, so I need some focused location that we can search. But other than that, we can't just randomly looking around because, you know, it's okay.
It is
the only reason I brought it up was because I just didn't want it to wait until you're 3 years into the project and then somebody come in and find a couple of old bones or something like that and bring everything to a screeching halt.
Yeah, the same reason I'm very interested in listening to her. So I definitely not ignore her. She's a very wonderful, balanced kind of conversation that me and her have. So it's not like
it's actually fun to talk to her about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's like a mini Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. I'm sorry I missed the meeting.
Very good.
Thanks. Okay. Moving on to our last item here. Item F, review bid result for the renovation of the old newsstand at City Hall for a new customer service center and refer recommendation to the Common Council for action. 1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with HV Contractor Corporation for the Customer Service Center renovation project at City Hall for a total not to exceed $68,000, account number noted. And 2, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $6,800, account numbers noted. Who would like to move it? Ms. McMurray. Thank you. Yeah, so this is we've been talking about this for quite some time. Once customer service moved into that location and during COVID, it's just really been great. It's great that we're going to be able to move the whole the office there and everything. But Ms. Lauricella brought this up, and we have talked about this in the past. What are we going to be able to enhance the security in that area? Is that something, we had conversations about that a while back, but I haven't heard anything recently.
Yeah, we have conversation before COVID. We have conversation during COVID. It's finding a balance between security. It's not like, like how much is too much, how much is not enough, and also controlling on weekends and evening hours. I mean, we are not opening. I mean, City Hall council meeting is in person, but at the same time, there's not a lot of activity kind of thing. So we do have different strategies. I think my suggestion is that maybe one day, sometime next week, when I have a chance, Barbara and I maybe just sit down and just go over some of this, and then we because Tom Livingston, when he was the chairperson of the committee, we sat down and go over some of these options, even including the Common Council chamber. That we actually talk about common chamber security and stuff. We also did some upgrading on the mayor's office and stuff like that. But how much, how little, how the building set up, it's complicated. And then and we also look at steps of gradually increasing the level of security. Is when we talk about somebody signing up, walk up to security and sign up. If every member of the public comes in to look at land record, the potential is you need more staffing kind of thing. And also what are we preventing? If Alan Lowe go up and sign up and put down, Barbara Smith on it, well, people know, but just because people sign up, does that prevent a situation kind of thing? So it's very different scenario. We also had talked to the police department about it previously and how much we need to do and things like that. So it's a very complex conversation. I don't think we necessarily talk about land use at this point. I think me and Barbara, we can talk about a little bit and figure out maybe we can get police department involved again. We also we actually talk about like dividing the entrance hallway coming in and out and put a barrier between, so you have to go for a security checkpoint. And the area that we typically have 2 garbage cans there, we can potentially turn into a security office kind of thing with like a window. Again, there's different options, different possibility, but I think it's an evolution of needs, So again, it's a very long conversation. So I don't think we want to take up time here, but let's maybe again we can talk about it and then we bring it back to land use when we get some suggestions kind of thing.
Okay. Ms. McMurray.
I'm just glad that the conversation is starting. I know that we have been in chambers in the evening, and my husband actually brought it up to me, saying, we've had some outbursts and we've had to call the police, and I don't necessarily feel safe being in chambers all the time because security is 3 floors down and you never know when someone's going to be upset or follow through with something. And it's really impossible to get somebody to come up and address that situation when it's happening, especially since they're 3 floors down and we don't always have police presence. So I can only imagine if you work in City Hall every day, if you feel uneasy, I understand that. So I just think it needs to be addressed. I don't think the security, I love the security team there, but during COVID, we did have to sign in and you did have to show your ID. And no, that's not going to stop, anybody from being crazy or anything, but I do think we need to address the security in the building for everybody who is there, both residents and employees.
And also, I think when we talk about the security guard, the people we hire, again, not that we have they're not armed guard kind of thing, right? So even you have a problem, but I think even you get somebody downstairs, the person downstairs is not set up or positioned to deal to manage that kind of situation. It's a little bit more customer service and direction and just the eyes on the property, and not security guys and safety kind of thing. They're not armed and they can't go arrest anybody. So it's a very complicated issue. We have one person staff there during the daytime, but what happened when the person go lunch and go to the bathroom and take a break kind of thing? What happens? So you need more staffing. It's a long conversation, and the way the building used on weekends, on evenings are very different. So even in case of like a fire alarm, how does people know what to do and where to go kind of thing. When staff is the building is one thing. So there's many issues. Many things that we need to look at. There's different strategy, different perspective, between the fire and police. Everybody has some ideas and stuff, but we try to get all that together and how secure the building is. I don't want to talk about too much in public. This is a public meeting, so let's just talk about a little bit between me and Barbara first, and then she maybe bring it back to a caucus and for the council to listen to it a little bit, understanding what we look at in long-term strategy, short-term strategy, and it's a progression.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really important. And, there have been times where I have felt unsafe, and this goes back years, long before COVID, where, we have felt unsafe in council chambers for the reasons that you mentioned, Jen. So, yeah, it's a concern. And I am bringing it up partially because Ms. Laura Cella did, but also because, there was a time when we were talking about, this change and bringing the customer service up front and how we might, piggyback that and work around the security in that area. So, yeah, I think
I
it's
understand there's some issue with 6 different Capitol today.
What's that?
There's some issues with 6 different Capitol around the country today. Capitol buildings.
Oh,
state Capitol buildings. State even Hartford. There was some kind of bomb scare and stuff like that. It's kind of
a concern.
6 places today.
Really concerned.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So we need to vote on this, right? Okay. Any more questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Dewan, you with us? Yes. Okay. That passes unanimously. Okay. That's it. Unless there's anything else, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Ms. McMurray, all in favor? Good night, everybody.
Happy New Year's
Thank you,
again.
Joanne.
Happy New Year.